world, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Spooky Story Sundays. If you don't know me, my name's Olivia Hotchkiss, and every Sunday I do my makeup and I talk about a true ghost story. This is heavily inspired by Bailey SARIAN, who is here for you every Monday, and she does her makeup while talking about a murder mystery. If you guys want your scary stories to be featured on my YouTube channel, all you have to do is DM me on Instagram, which I will link in the description box below, and then I will talk about your story here on Sunday. So today's episode, if you didn't catch last week's, I talked about the haunting in Connecticut, and this week I am talking about the exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Disclaimer, this story is scary, it contains talk about possession, contains graphic images, and some pretty scary audio, so viewer discretion is advised. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel is rather intense. I personally think that it's one of my favorites, but I am also absolutely petrified of it because I don't do well with demons. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21st, 1952. She grew up in Bavaria, which is west of Germany, in the 1960s. She grew up in a very strict Catholic household where she attended Mass twice a week and she prayed every single night. An important thing to note was that Anneliese's mother got into some sexual relations and had an illegitimate child by the name of Martha. This essentially means that the child had been conceived before Anneliese's mom was married. This makes Anneliese's mother disgraced, meaning she has to wear a black veil on her wedding day to announce to everyone that she is no longer pure. She had sex before marriage. And so when Anneliese's mother had Anneliese, she decided that it was Anneliese's job to atone for her mother's sins. So she really locked religion into Anneliese's brain. One day, Anneliese, when she was 16, was at school, and her friends had stated that Anneliese seemed very dazed, and then Anneliese suddenly blacked out in the middle of class. She passed out. And although Anneliese does not remember this happening, both her family and friends state that Anneliese was in a trance-like state. Now, nothing happened for a full year, and Anneliese had experienced a similar occurrence, but this time it was at home in her bed. Her body had gone through multiple convulsions, which had caused her to shake uncontrollably, so basically have like an epileptic seizure. And she had woken up in a trance and wet her bed. So after this second occurrence, Anneliese's mother had taken her to see a neurologist who had diagnosed Anneliese with temporal lobe epilepsy, which is a disorder that causes seizures, loss of memory, as well as visual and auditory hallucinations. After being diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy, Anneliese had began taking medication. She was fine for a little bit, so she decided to enroll in the University of, I'm gonna botch this, Wurzburg in 1973. Please do not comment on how I absolutely destroyed that word. It is stated that her new medication, after she had applied to the university, her new medication just kind of stopped working. So she maybe needed to up her dosage, or her body just wasn't taking the medication very well, and she noticed symptoms started to occur all over again, but this time much more intense. She would state that she was possessed by a demon and that she needed to find something else besides the pills to fix her mentally. She stated that she began to see the face of a devil everywhere she went, and she constantly heard demons whispering in her ear. She stated that she knew it was demons and not just random voices because every single time she would go to pray, she would hear the demons whispering in each of her ears, telling her that she was damned to hell, telling her that she will rot in hell. And so that's why she was kind of like, oh, I think these are some demons, because every time I do the good holy stuff, they get mad at me. She had asked her mom to find a priest to help exorcise these demons out of her, but for the first little bit, her mom was not convinced that she was actually possessed, so her mom refused to seek help for her, which is kind of messed up. The mom also forced her to atone for, you know, sins that she didn't even do, so, you know, just mom things. I think a reason, though, as to why the mom was maybe initially so standoffish with getting a priest for her daughter is because A, she was diagnosed by a neurologist being epileptic, and B, getting an exorcism to actually be performed is a lot more work than I think the television series make it out to be. You have to find a priest, you have to find a bishop to approve of the priest's wishes to grant an exorcism. And that's hard to do, especially in a time when exorcism wasn't really known. It didn't really exist. It wasn't until the movie The Exorcist had come out in the late 1970s that people began to open their eyes a little bit more to the idea that exorcism is legitimate and can be performed and studied. Although Anneliese's mother refused to find a priest for her, Anneliese decided to take it upon her own accord and search for one herself, because she was pretty convinced that she needed help. Anneliese sought out multiple priests in multiple churches in her area, and not a single one that she could find for the first couple months agreed to do an exorcism on her. They all stated, go seek medical help. Shortly after seeking a bunch of priests and unfortunately ultimately failing to find a priest that will help, Anneliese's delusions began to grow much more intense. And she would rip off her clothing, just rip it off just because she wanted to. She would perform upwards of 400 squats a day. She crawled under the table and proceeded to bark like a dog for upwards of 2 days straight. She would eat spiders and apparently chew on coal. And then when it got the worst was when she would bite off the heads of dead birds. Then she would also urinate on the floor and quite literally lick her urine off the floor like a dog drinking water. And she was normal. She was an epileptic. Okay. Finally, after all of this insufferable torture that she was putting on herself, her mom was able to reach out to a priest by the name of Ernest Alt. And Ernest Alt was one of the few priests that was actually convinced she was possessed. He said, and I quote, "She did not seem like an epileptic," end quote. Anneliese had wrote to Priest Ernest saying, and I quote, "I am nothing. Everything about me is vanity. What should I do? I have to improve. You pray for me. I want to suffer for other people, but this is so cruel." Anneliese, because of her mother, had always been the type of woman to feel as though she had the need to atone for other people's sins as well as her own. So not only was Anneliese carrying her own sins with her, but Anneliese was also carrying the sins of anyone. She didn't care. For example, she would sometimes sleep on bare stone floors in order to suffer for the sins of homeless drug addicts and other damned souls, because she thought she was helping other people. This poor girl. My assumption is that because she did this, though, it made her more vulnerable, hence why demons possessed her. She was carrying a lot of sins with her, you know, like, needless to say, from what we know before, an exorcism has to be approved by that of a bishop. So Ernest Alt petitioned for Bishop Joseph Stangl to approve of the exorcism. And Joseph Stangl, he had approved of the request, and he granted Ernest Alt permission to perform the exorcism, but it was under strict rules. One of the rules being that the exorcism had to not be known by anyone except Ernest Alt, the other priest he had with him by the last name of Renez, and the family. Nobody else was allowed to know about the exorcism. And I think good reason. Like, back in the day, exorcism was not looked at quite the same as it is looked at now. Unfortunately, of course, word spreads and word got out that this was happening to Anneliese and people panicked, but people panicked less, I think, after the Exorcist movie came out in the late 1970s, specifically because this movie was scary and it opened a lot of doors for people in regards to realizing that exorcism is a thing. It's scary and it can be practiced and it can be performed. Following Bishop Joseph Stanwell's approval of the exorcism, performed over a 10-month time period, they had conducted a whopping 67 exorcisms. Some of the exorcisms lasted a total of 4 hours on Anneliese. Throughout the sessions, the priests, of course, they gained more knowledge on what was happening to Anneliese. It was revealed during the 3rd exorcism in 1975, I believe, where Anneliese had stated that she had a total of 6 demons trapped inside of her. And those demons were Lucifer, Cain, Judas, Adolf Hitler, Nero, and Fleischmann. Now, Fleischmann was a disgraced priest, and I think it was then that Anneliese had everyone convinced she was, in fact, possessed. Because I don't think anyone knew about Fleischmann except the priests performing the exorcism, because they're priests, so priests hear about disgraced priests probably all the time. There's no way Anneliese would have known about Fleischmann. So the fact that she said a name that she probably didn't even know existed kind of proved a point. So whenever the demons would come forward through Anneliese to talk to the priests, they would come forward with a very, very low growl. I would never be a priest that performs exorcisms. I can't even listen to the audio without pissing myself. I cannot imagine being in the same room and witnessing that. If she starts to fly, I'd be like, okay, cool. I'd call an Uber. Be like, bye. You're on your own. Burn the house. Just burn it. There are multiple recordings done by the priests, which are later used in court. And Anneliese's voice in each of the recordings is, and I quote, devilish. End quote. The audio, it makes my skin crawl. She does not sound like a 22 or a 23-year-old woman, especially when she names the demons that are possessing her. In one of the audio recordings, the priests ask who they believe to be Hitler coming forward. So they ask Hitler to recite a Bible verse. He does in fact recite it, but the priests say, and I quote, he does it in a very stuttered and forced manner. So it definitely did not want to say what it said, but it said it anyway. I'm going to be playing some little tidbits of the audio. If you wish to skip ahead, I will put timestamps for how long it is and where you can skip, because I would skip ahead. It's scary, I don't like it. Nope, can't even last 3 seconds. But this is what Anneliese, a 22 or 23-year-old woman at the time, sounded like.
Wer die Schuld daran, im Namen des dreieinigen Gottes, befehle ich dir, sagt die volle Wahrheit.
Now, the demons apparently, they argued often. The demons didn't like one another. They hate Hitler the most, which I find to be funny. I shouldn't find it funny, but I do. Hitler came through Anneliese one day and he said, and I quote, "People are stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death, but it goes on." End quote. And then Judas proceeded to come forward and I guess interrupt Hitler in a sense to say, and I quote, "Hitler is nothing but a big mouth who has no real say in hell," which I find funny because he had a lot of say on earth. Put him in a garbage chute and take him out. Even hell didn't want him. After the 10 months and after all the exorcism, did Anneliese survive? That I think is the real question. Unfortunately, no, she didn't. The exorcisms weren't what took her out, actually. What took her out was her being extremely malnourished. Like she stopped eating and stopped drinking. And her reason behind this being, she said that Mother Mary had visited her multiple times and told her she had to finish the final stages of her possession. And the final stages of her possession were self-torture, I think. So she did this by not eating, she did this by not drinking. Anneliese said that she frequently talked about wanting to die in order to atone for the wayward youth of the day and at-the-stake priests of the modern church. Anneliese, during her exorcisms, had actually gone as far as ripping the tendons and breaking the bones in her knees because she prayed so often. She was frequently restrained in order for the priest to conduct exorcism rites on her. Because Anneliese stopped drinking and eating, she passed away on July 1st, 1976 of malnutrition. Her final words were, and I quote, "Mother, I'm afraid." And then she closed her eyes forever. She was only 23 years of age. Now, of course, because of how big this got, it was taken to court. The two priests, Ernest Alt and Father Renez, were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence. The two were sentenced to 6 months in prison and 3 years on probation. But the prison sentence it did end up being suspended. Let's see if I can talk while doing this eyeliner. So the parents weren't sentenced quite as harshly because in German law, there is a criteria and states that if the judge feels as though the parent or other party involved has, quote, suffered enough, then they don't need to suffer anymore. So nothing happened to the parents. They were just deemed having had suffered enough. So Anneliese is still remembered today. She's not only been deemed an inspiration in the horror world, but she's also an icon for some Catholics who felt that modern secular interpretations of the Bible were distorting the ancient supernatural truth in which it contains. The people who got to know Anneliese stated that she was in fact possessed. The way that she acted and how it progressed over time and how she just allowed herself to be malnourished and tortured like how she was. Anneliese wouldn't have ever allowed herself to go through something like that, whether she was atoning for her own sins or somebody else's. If you would like to visit Anneliese's grave, it is located in Klingenberg Cemetery in Klingenberg, Germany. I'm going to now put my lashes on and finish my lips because I'm not doing that while talking. And then I will get you guys' final thoughts. And then we will go over the exorcism of Anneliese Michel. That is the intense story of Anneliese Michel's exorcism. Do you think she was truly possessed? Do you believe in possession? Comment down below. I personally, as you all probably have guessed, am convinced that she was in fact possessed. I just listened to the audio. A lot of people, however, don't believe in the story. They believe that it is instead a way for a group of people to have fed off of a mentally ill woman for their own spiritual belief in order to pursue / further a belief and hopefully convince other people of this false belief. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Spooky Story Sundays. I really hope that you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed today's video, and don't forget to hit that notification bell if you want to see when I post. Hopefully I will be here for you on more days than just Sundays. I hope to start a thing called Workout Wednesdays. That'll be fun. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!